We are recording. And again, I want to welcome all of you to the Introduction to C708 and Calculator tutorial live event. This is the one right before Thanksgiving. And I'm going to go on camera very briefly because trust me, as you will see, as soon as I start sharing my camera, there I am. I have a face for radio, so I don't want to scare too many people too much. I am Bruce Ferber. I'm one of the course instructors in finance, and this is my pal Cooper. Cooper is an 11-year-old poodle Bichon mix, a Bichon poodle mix, and he's a rescue. You want to say hi, bud? I have three of these guys. I have Cooper, I have Murphy, who's around here somewhere. He's a 7-year-old poodle Maltese mix, and I have Gracie, who is a Pomeranian Westie mix. They're all rescues, and they are all my buds. The advantage to me of working from home is I get to hang out with them and my daughter, who's 17 and still in high school, all day, which is very cool for me. So Cooper says hello. He loves everybody. He's my pirate pup. I'm going to put him down because he likes to sit next to me while I work. And for those of you who have noticed the fan in the background, you probably are wondering why in the late fall I have a ceiling fan going on. I live in Tampa, and it was about 80 degrees today, and it's still warm. So the air conditioning is on and the ceiling fan is on. So that. You won't see that very often because I'm going to shut off my camera in just a minute. Anybody know what movie this GIF is from? Exactly, 300. Great movie. Um, I don't know if any of you have Maria Utaro as your program mentor. Maria is the champion GIF person, and she's a great program mentor. And I saw that she sent one of her students this and copied me, and I'm like, I'm stealing that because that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. This is finance, and yes, it is. So we're going to get started in just a minute. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. At the end of this live event, you'll have the opportunity to download this slide deck. It will also be available tomorrow in the course of study under course tips. There is already a introduction to C708 recording there. I'm going to update it with this recording because I've added a couple of more slides that are very important to this. Okay, everybody can see here there is no dial-in, so please use your computer speakers. I'm going to hide this so that we can now start our merry journey. Okay. So here is our agenda for today. We're going to talk very briefly about C704, C708 version 4, which is the version all of you are in. We'll talk through the 4 competencies, the recommended pacing, and then I can share with you what students actually do, learning resources and supplemental readings and videos. We'll then spend a lot more time talking about the success strategies. And this is really where you want to pay a lot of attention because I'm really focusing on each of the modules within each of the 4 competency units and where to focus your attention because this is the information that I know will be on the PA and the OA. Not to say you shouldn't go through the rest of the text, but this is the information you really want to be able to focus your attention on. Talk a little bit about the available live events, and we have lots of them. This week is the only exception. This is the only live event this week because of the holiday. Next week we have all 4 of our unit live events will be shown live. So if you're interested in seeing the Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, or Unit 5 cohorts, they will be available live next week. And talk about CI assistance. I'm going to focus a little bit of time on the PA and the OA, how many questions, the types of questions, and then really how to approach the class to be successful. And this, now that we have a couple of months worth of student data, I can say with pretty strong assurance that this is a tried and true method. It works for the vast majority of students. If you want to modify it based on your learning style or based on how you like to work, I strongly encourage you to do so, but I want to give you at least a framework from which to work. And then the last part of this is going to be an introduction to our handy-dandy calculator, the TI-BA2 Plus. And what I have is actually a calculator app that we will go through, and we will do some setup, and then we will also do some basic math and some time value of money calculations. And right now, that may not mean a lot to you, but you will thank me when you get to Unit 4, which has the time value of money. Units 3 and 4, incidentally, are the two units that have all of the math. Units 2 and 5 are all concepts. Okay? So are there any questions before we get started? Erica has a question. Erica H, because we have two Ericas here today. Yes. Yes, Erica H. This is just an hour long. I'm from New York City, so I speak quickly. So hopefully you all can keep up. I know it's pretty strange that a guy from New York City who grew up, actually born in Brooklyn, New York, just said y'all, but I haven't lived in New York for a long, long time, and I lived in the DC area for many years, which is technically the South. So anyway, yes, we should be done within an hour. I'm not going to read the course overview because you can read that in Unit 1, which is essentially the introduction. The key to understanding finance is, and I get a lot of students who say things like, I'm an HR student or I'm a marketing student. Why do I need finance? So let me tell you why. I was a CFO for 17 years before I joined WGU, and I was in corporate finance for a total of 27 years. And I will tell you, I managed HR, IT, finance, of course, accounting, of course, and administration in most of the companies I worked. And especially on the HR and IT side, if you didn't understand some of the basic financial terms and some of the basic strategies and concepts that we talk about, you would have trouble working with me. Things like forecasting and budgeting. If you're a director or a VP of IT or HR, you're going to be doing that. So the expectation is at least you'll have some passing understanding of the concepts, and then we can go through how to do it, individually, as if each company does it a little bit differently. But you just need to know some of those concepts. So it is important, even though it might not seem that way today. So think about finance as a forward-looking topic. So for example, in finance, we look at forecasting and budgeting as two of our main tasks. And a lot of that you'll see as we go through the 4 units. The key to finance, really, or anybody in finance, is we want to make sure that we are providing the correct data to our management and to our shareholders so that we make good decisions and we increase our shareholder value. That's really our goal in finance. Chanel, the TI-84, that is a graphing calculator, if I remember correctly, and I think that is on the naughty list for calculators. And the reason it's on the naughty list, that is, you can't use it for the PA and the OA, is because I believe the TI-84 has what they call CAS, C-A-S, which is Computer Algebraic System, which is really a nice way of saying it has a way of storing formulas. And obviously for the PA and the OA, we give you a formula sheet. We'll talk about that. But my recommendation would be, if you can get the TI BA2 Plus, do so, because it is focused on financial. It's a financial calculator. It has financial functions, as you'll see. And it'll make your calculations when you do your time value of money math much easier than if you have to do it by hand. So that would be my recommendation. I was told it's about $30. You can get it on Amazon. I think I talked to a student tonight who actually looked on Amazon, and she orders it today, not Amazon Prime, but just regular Amazon. She'll get it on Wednesday. So that's just my recommendation. Okay, so my pleasure. There are 4 competencies that you will be tested on in this course: finance in the business environment, which is Unit 2, only concepts; financial forecasting and ratio analysis, Unit 3, which is a combination of quantitative and qualitative math and concepts; interest rates, time value of money, and risk and return, also concepts and calculations. And finally, bond and stock valuation and capital budgeting. And that sounds really daunting, but it's all concepts, no math. Pacing, and this is a somewhat controversial topic. The course is designed to be completed in anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks. My personal experience with my students is that they complete it anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks, depending on how much effort and focus they want to put on it. 4 weeks, I think, is a comfortable pacing for most students because you can read enough that you will not only understand it, but retain it just equally as importantly. Um, if you've taken other accounting courses, if you've taken college algebra, macroeconomics, or you have experience in finance, it should take you a lot less. College algebra will help in terms of some of the calculations. Macro will help in terms of one of the sections in Unit 4, interest rates, and accounting in general. Even if you've taken VYC1, which is the Intro to Accounting course, that will be very important in terms of your understanding of financial statements, balance sheet, and income statement. There are 3 modules per unit, as you all know. So there's a total of 12 units, and you can easily manage, quite frankly, 2 modules a week, but you can also easily manage 3 modules a week and do the course in 4 weeks. Just to give you a sense, I had a student who did it over a weekend, and she put the pedal to the metal, but she finished it. She got the course on Friday and passed the OA on Sunday. So it is possible, but she spent all weekend doing finance, and I'm not sure a lot of us would want to do that, except for geeks like me. Okay, so there is a whole host of learning resources that are available for this course. There are some practice problems that are somewhat helpful because they were really geared for the prior version of C708, version 3, but there are problems in there that will be helpful if you wanted to get some math assistance. The formula sheet that you will get when you take the PA and the OA is in the COS under course tips. You may want to look at that, so just to familiarize yourself with what formulas you will be required to understand, obviously not memorize, but understand. And learning resources, we use Lumen Learning's Boundless Finance, and that is a really good supplemental finance resource. So I recommend you use that as needed when you need some help. Again, let me make sure that I didn't go over that one part too quickly. You do not have to memorize formulas in the course. You have to understand how to apply them, but you don't have to memorize them. Okay. Also in the text, you see a lot. There are a number of videos, and some of the videos are from Khan Academy. I have used those in the past when I have taught as an adjunct, which is a part-time instructor at other universities. They are excellent, especially when it comes to explaining somewhat difficult financial concepts. So I strongly recommend when you see some of the supplemental videos that are linked to the text, make sure you watch them. I think that'll help quite a bit. I don't know how many of you are visual learners, but I am, and I would much prefer to watch videos, even cohort videos, than I would having to go through the text. You have to go through the text, but since I'm a visual learner, I like hearing and seeing versus reading. And there are some really good supplemental readings, so I recommend that you don't skip those as well, because that'll give you some additional real-world insight that the text might not give you. Okay, approaches to units 2 to 5. So the key here is anything in red, really important to know. And that big thud you heard was the hint I just dropped that you're going to see this on the PA and or the OA. So make sure that at a minimum, you understand what is in red, okay? Again, go through the text, absolutely, but focus on the areas that I highlight here. So Unit 2, which is Finance in the Business Environment, and this is for the vast majority of students who work in any kind of business. This is by far the easiest of the 4 competencies because it really talks about how finance fits in the overall business world. And most of us should know a lot about this, even if we never knew anything about finance before. It's just in the normal course of working in a business. So module 2 and module 1 we're not even talking about because they're very, very basic. Go through it. A lot of the reading you're going to end up doing is going to be, oh, I knew that. So you should be able to go through it fairly quickly. Module 3, on the other hand, they ask some questions about some things on the PA and OA that you really need to know in this particular module. And in particular, pay attention to financial markets. And if you've ever done any kind of investing on your own, this will be second nature to you. The role of financial markets in capital allocation. And believe it or not, you do need to know a little bit about the Securities Exchange Acts of 1933 and 1934. We all remember, of course, when those were passed. Um, sorry, a little bit of sarcasm there. And then this one is actually really important. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. This is something that is still in force today, as are the other two Security Exchange Acts. But Sarbanes-Oxley, which is called SOX, that's the short form of it, came about as a result of Enron and WorldCom and some of the companies that were defrauding their investors back in the late 1900s and the early 2000s. So that's a really important act, and it is, as I said, it's still in effect today. Unit 3 is financial forecasting and ratio analysis. First of 2 units where you're going to have some math. I do the Unit 3 live event, and I focus my attention on information that is going to be on the PA and the OA, including the math. And for, a little secret here, of course, now that I've said it and it's being recorded, everyone will know. But the little secret is the math questions that I use as practice problems in my Unit 3 live event were taken from the PA with different numbers. So it really gives you a good understanding of, okay, how do I approach certain things like the DuPont equation and other things like that. So strongly recommend look at the recording or attend one of the live events. You get to see one of my other dogs. I know that in and of itself is worth your time. Okay, so the things you need to understand under financial statements is make sure you are very comfortable with balance sheet and income statement and understand the basic components of both statements. So balance sheet, current assets, current liabilities, fixed assets, long-term debt, total equity, things like that. And even within each of those categories, some of the basic accounts. You will need to know those when you do some of the calculations. And that's Module 4. Module 5, ratio calculations and analysis. This is where the math starts, and you're going to use your financial statements in terms of the math here. There are 2 to 3 DuPont equation questions on the PA and OA, and the DuPont equation at a very high level is just another way of calculating return on equity, which is, for somebody like me as a CFO, the most important ratio that I frankly needed. And I go through what return on equity is, and more importantly, what the DuPont equation is and how to calculate it. We'll go through some formulas, some practice problems as well. Also understand the relationship between return on equity, return on assets, and growth, and that I go through that in my cohort as well. Okay. The last module in Unit 3 is financial forecasting. From a conceptual standpoint, make sure you know how to not only calculate a sales growth rate, but what it means. The concept of percent of sales forecasting, there is no math there, but you do need to understand the concept. What a spontaneous account is, it's a very basic definition, but you do need to know it. You also need to know how to calculate sustainable growth rate, and the formula is given to you in the formula sheet, and discretionary financing needed. Again, formula is on the formula sheet. So not only do you need to understand the concept of SGR, sustainable growth rate, and discretionary financing needed, but you also need to know how to calculate it. And again, in my Unit 3 live event, I go through both of those. Unit 4 is the second of the 2 quantitative units. And I'll focus on the one unit that you all really need to focus and make sure you understand. Interest rates is not that unit. Interest rates, which is Module 7, is very much like what you probably have taken in macro. It really looks at the following topics in detail: required rate of return, what drives market interest rates, spoiler alert, inflation, and also understand the term structure of interest rates. Okay, and within that, they also talk about the yield curve. That's something you also want to make sure you're aware of. Again, if you've taken macro, you've probably seen this already, and it'll just be a nice review for you. So, Module 8, this is the most important module, certainly in Unit 4. Time value of money. There are two fundamental concepts in finance. One is the time value of money. And basically, you already know what the time value of money is. You may not know that it's called that, but the time value of money is basically the concept that a dollar today has a lot more value than a dollar in the future. And the way to look at it, and the way I always try to make sure everyone understands it, if I offered you $1,000 today or $1,000 next year, what would you take? And virtually everyone would say this today, because you can buy something with it and lock in a price so you don't pay a higher price due to inflation. You can invest it, you can put it in the bank and have it earn interest, etc. So that's the basic concept. But you do need to go through the entire module, and it's not an easy module. If you have questions, make sure you make an appointment with either your CI or another CI that's available, and any of us will be happy to go through the information in more detail and answer any questions that you have. And then the last unit in Unit 4 is risk and return, and this is the second fundamental concept in finance. And the basic concept here is that if you take a lot of risk, you would expect to earn a lot of return for bearing more risk. But the concepts that you really need to understand are the types of risk, also types of return, and variance. Variance is a concept of risk, is a measure of risk. It's a statistical measure of risk. Just understand the basics of that. There is no math. And you also need to understand the concepts of unsystematic and systematic risk. Sounds difficult, really is not. Just need to understand the basic concepts. Unit 5, this is also a concepts-only unit. This is bond and stock valuation and capital budgeting. So Module 10 is bond and bond valuation. And really this introduces you to the different components of a bond, the coupon, the yield to maturity, the current yield, things of that nature. Make sure you understand all of those, because you will need to understand and know the concepts. Okay, and the last part of this module talks about the different kind of risks that a bondholder faces. This is also an important conceptual component of this module. You will have at least 2 questions on the PA and the OA related to certain risks that bondholders face. Module 11 talks about stock and equity valuation. So the key concepts you want to focus on here are debt and equity finance, long-term versus short-term financing, the different types of stock, common stock and preferred stock, and the characteristics of each. Not hard, just make sure that you understand it and remember them. And finally, the last module within Unit 5, capital budgeting. Again, another conceptual module. Make sure you know capital budgeting, goals of capital budgeting, accounting flows, cash flows, and ranking investment proposals. Again, all concept, no math, but in particular, make sure you understand the differences between net present value, internal rate of return, and payback value, or payback period, I should say. Okay? Questions on the success strategies and the concepts with which you need to focus? Okay, good. Okay, so continuing with our theme of success strategies, one of the things that we have found that successful students tend to do is make sure you take all of your end of module quizzes, and most of them have 5 questions, and each of the end of unit exams. If you get a 70% or better, just move on, you're good to go. If you don't, go back and study those areas where you didn't answer the questions correctly, retake the exam. Once you get a 70% or better, move on. It seems that students who do that tend to do better than students who just skip that part. Again, as I mentioned, there are live events. There are usually 2 live events a week, and there are recordings under in the COS under course tips. So I strongly recommend that you look at each of the 4 if you can't attend any of them. But we've been told by a whole host of students that these new cohorts are very, very helpful in terms of getting them through the PA and the OA. Again, commercial for course instructors. We are usually your best resource for any kind of one-on-one assistance. So when you have questions about a concept that doesn't make sense or the calculation doesn't make sense, make an appointment with your CI. I know for those of you who are my students, or even if you're not, I work with about 75% of my students, 25% of others. Students of other CIs. We all want to help our students, so there is no ownership of our students. I like to share my screen so you can see not only the calculator when we do calculations, but I have a whole host of different visuals so that we can go through them and hopefully make you understand what you originally set your appointment for. Okay. PA and OA. There are 67 questions on the PA and 67 questions on the OA. All of them are multiple choice questions. The PA has 8 quantitative questions, and depending on the PA you get, it's between 8 and 10. So you can see the percentage is not that much. 15 to 20% of the OAs are going to have math. The rest will of course be concept. Okay. Again, just a commercial. Use those quizzes and unit exams. They're really helpful in terms of making sure that you understand the information that is presented. Okay, so here is the competency breakdown. And this is important to note because if you play the numbers game, as a lot of you do, you want to make sure if you're going to focus your time and attention on specific competencies, you're going to want to look at the ones where they have the biggest weight out of the total score for the PA and the OA. So finance in the business environment, Unit 2 is 24%, which is 16 questions. Financial forecasting and ratio analysis, 27% and 18 questions. Interest rates, time value of money, and risk and return, not surprising because it talks about both of the fundamental concepts in finance, 30% and 20 questions. And bond and stock valuation and capital budgeting is the least weighted competency at 19%, and that's 13 questions. The other thing that's very important is we use your PA coaching report to help pinpoint exactly where we want to have you focus your studying after you've taken the PA. My strong recommendation is do not take the PA until you've gone through the material. And when you take the PA, take it under test conditions, because this really gives us, you and us as your CIs, the best indication of the areas that we want to focus to make sure that you're rock solid for the OA. Are there any questions? You can see a theme here with dogs, puppies. Any questions about anything that we've talked about so far? Okay, Erica H is typing. This is my favorite puppy, the one with the little white stripe on his nose, by the way. Okay, do I know if the PA and OA are similar? That's a great question, Erica. The answer is I do know, and they are. I've been told by a whole number of students that the OA is very similar to the PA, a little bit harder because it goes into, in terms of the concepts, goes into a little bit more detail. And the reason I can't tell you with 100% assurance is because they don't allow us to see the OA questions. They know that because we want to see our students succeed, that if they told us what the questions were, we might slip somehow and share that with our students to ensure that they're successful. So they don't tell us. However, again, virtually every student that I talk to that has passed the PA and then the OA, I ask just to make sure so I know that the answer to that question. Any other great questions or even not so great questions? I take them all. Okay, excellent. So let's do this. Let's now move on to the BA2 Plus calculator tutorial. So basically what we're going to talk about is a couple things here. I have a calculator app that I can't unfortunately bring into my Adobe Connect room. So I have it actually up on a separate screen on my computer. So I'm going to take us out of this in a minute and we'll go look at that and look at the application, the calculator app. So we can go through how to set it up, what to look for, and then do some basic calculations, both math and then time value of money, just so you can see how to use those function keys. If you look at the formula sheet and you look at the formulas for time value of money versus what we're going to do today, you will see why I recommend spending the $30 to get the TI BA2 Plus. Okay. Keep in mind that the BA2 Plus is a financial calculator, and if you're taking any of the accounting courses, you will also need it. So you don't just need it for this course and then you can sell it on eBay. You'll use it if you're taking other accounting courses. So here's a quick overview of the calculator. There are a couple of keys that are very important, and again, we'll all go through these when we look at the app. There is a second key, and the second key is a shift key. So oftentimes you will see me say, press the second key and then press another key. You don't have to hold down the second key, but you do use it like a shift key, except you don't hold it down. There's a CPT key, which is the compute key. We'll use these for our time value of money functions. The enter key just works like an enter key on your keyboard. And the CE, clear element, and clear key either works as a backspace or clear and resets everything to 0. Okay, and again, we'll look at that in just a minute. Okay, so now I am going to unshare this and share my screen. So now you should all see introduction to the TI BA2 Plus calculator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and my application. Can someone let me know in chat whether or not you can see that? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so you take your calculator out of the box. The first thing you're going to want to do is set up your number of significant digits. And significant digits are the number of digits to the right of the decimal point. We strongly recommend at least 4. And 4 is what I use for my calculator, and here's why. If you have 2 significant digits and your calculation is 32.54%, it's going to show up as 33%, which is, it's rounded and it's rounded correctly. However, when you get your multiple choice answers for the question you just answered, you may not see 33%, and that's going to cause some heartburn. Don't want to cause any more anxiety than you need to taking either the PA or the OA. So by doing 4 significant digits, it allows us to then say 32.84 or 54 looks like 0.3254. So more than 4 to me starts to get a little unwieldy, especially with the zeros, but less than 4 can cause some rounding issues when you go to take your exam. So how do we set it up for 4 significant digits? It comes as 2, okay? So I'm going to press here's my second key, here's my compute key, here's my enter key, and here's my clear button. And obviously the on-off switch, okay? So I'm going to press my second button. You see a little second pops up in your display. And then I'm going to hit the period key. Anything above any of the keys, that's what the second button activates. So this says format. So I'll hit the period button, and immediately I see it says DEC for decimal. Mine says 4 because I've set it up for 4. Okay. If I want to set it up for anything, if yours will say 2. So to set it up for 4, I can press whatever number I want, press the Enter key, which is up here, and you'll see it says DEC equals 4. If I wanted it as 9, I could say 9 and the Enter key. Doesn't like 9. How about 5? There we go. Okay, so you can change it and make it whatever you want. Again, my recommendation would be 4 and then hit the Enter key, and now we're done. Our decimals, and you can see that, is 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros to the right of the decimal point. I'll hit the Clear key. I hit it twice, once to get rid of the function and the second to get rid of all the other numbers. So now I have my calculator set up with 4 significant digits to the right of the decimal point. Questions? Okay. And this goes through exactly what I just did. This is the second setup thing that you want to make sure that you do and make sure that it's set up correctly. And this one is really important because if it's set up incorrectly, and sometimes at the factory it is set up incorrectly, when you do your calculations, you will not get the right answers. Even if you do everything correct, you won't get the right answers. There is a setting called periods per year, and it should be set to 1 period per year, which is annual. That means when you enter 6% as your interest rate, it is 6% per year. Sometimes the factory sets it as 12, which is monthly, so it would be 6% per month rather than 6% per year. You can imagine the havoc that this creates because it is a subtle change that no one really thinks about. And I can't tell you how many students have called me and said, my calculator's broken. First thing I do is look at this, and invariably this is the issue. So how do we do our PY check when we first get our calculator? Okay, first we're going to press the second key. Again, here it is in our upper left-hand part of our display. Then we're going to press the I over Y key. And if you notice, and I know it's hard to see, but right above I over Y it says P over Y. I over Y is interest per year. P over Y is periods per year. Some of you might have it set up like this, as 12. Make sure it is set up as 1. So to do that, you would press 1, hit the Enter key, and it'll tell us P over Y equals 1. This is the correct setting. Just please make sure it says 1. You will save yourself significant anxiety, especially when you're taking an exam. So I'm just going to hit the Clear key twice, and it clears it back to 0. Questions on the basic calculator setup. That's really all you need to do. Okay, great. We'll move on. So let's do some basic math just to practice how we would use the calculator to enter basic numbers and do mathematics. So here's our practice problem number 1. NSG Corp, and NSG, by the way, stands for Next Stop Graduation, because I am an incredibly optimistic person, and I know all of you will graduate. Has a net income margin of 7.14%, total asset turnover of 0.80, and a leverage multiplier of 0.95. What is their return on equity? And by the way, if you think back to my Unit 3 discussion, this is the DuPont equation. Okay, but this also gives you a sense of how to calculate the basic math using our calculator. Okay, so here's the formula: net income margin, 7.14%, times total asset turnover of 0.8, times the leverage multiplier of 0.95. Okay, when we multiply the 3 of those together, okay, we will get the return on equity using the DuPont equation. So how do we do that? 7.14%, super important. And I know for those of you who are comfortable with math, you're gonna probably say to yourself, what are you saying, Ferber? That's so basic. There are students who forget that 7.14% is actually 0.0714. And that's really important to remember. So 0.0714, That is my first number, right? 7.14% as my net income margin, times my total asset turnover of 0.8. So here's my division key. Here's my multiplication key, subtraction, addition, and of course the equal sign. Okay, so 0.0714 times 0.80. 0.8, I don't necessarily need the 0, but I'll put it in anyway. So now I can do one of two things. I could say equals, and that gives me the intermediate calculation. Or I could have just said times 0.95. So I can do it either way. I wanted to show you the intermediate calculation. And now I'll say it's 0.0571 times 0.95. 0.95 equals 0.0543. Interesting. Whoops, sorry. And you can see here the answer is 0.0543, which is 5.43%. Okay, when I'm done, I'll clear it. Questions on basic math. We're going to do another one. And this is the game plan, learn it, live it, and love it. Okay, questions on the math. Dr. Frank is in the house. Dr. Frank is one of our most excellent course instructors. I'm glad to have you here. We appreciate it. I would strongly recommend, again, as CIs go, if you need a CI and your CI is not available, Dr. Frank, who thought we were starting at 9, Dr. Frank, who is usually very punctual, is one of the best CIs that we have. So I strongly recommend working with him. He's great and he's funny, and he and I do a comedy routine, usually 3 nights a week. Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Okay, sorry. So let's do another math problem, but this one, sorry. If you've seen any of the recorded cohorts that Dr. Frank and I are in, yeah, we tend to do this kind of stuff. So sorry, I apologize. Okay, sorry. So problem number 2 is solve the following math problem using your calculator. I know we can do it by hand or in our heads. Now, there's a tradition that we have, and when you get the right answer, we give you a virtual Snickers bar. And the reason we do that, and I'll tell you the story very quickly, when I used to teach on ground as an adjunct, as a part-time instructor, I used to bring a bag of candy because it was late in the evening, and frankly, I was as tired as our students were. So to get them to participate, I would tempt them with real Snickers bars, little mini Snickers bars, and I would throw them at them when they got the right answer, and they would get sugared up before they went home, and I'd get sugared up, and we'd all be happy. So unfortunately, until Amazon figures out how to deliver Snickers bars not virtually, but in real time using drones or whatever, this is going to have to be a virtual Snickers bar, and you'll see this in a bunch of our different cohorts as well. So how do we solve the following math problem using our calculator? Okay, remember the one thing, Star Trek replicator, exactly. Remember the one thing we always remember is we do what's in parentheses first, then exponent, then multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. And that's PEMDAS, as some of you have learned it, is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But this order of precedence is always important to remember. Okay, so what is the answer? Man, I think I need real Snickers bars here tonight. I'll tell you what. Excellent. The answer is 20. Very good, Jack. Very good. Steve, excellent. The answer is 20. So, what does that mean? How do we get that? Okay. Steve Harvey, of course, with his eyes closed. We first do it's in parentheses, 18 times 2. So let's do that. 18 times 2 equals 36 minus 16. I'll just hit the minus sign and 16 and then equals 20. So excellent. Both of you guys get the virtual Snickers bar today. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. Questions on how we do basic math with our calculator. Clear it? Okay. And I will tell you that the order that we did it, number, operator, second number, either operator again, or equals, is exactly how you want to do it. You notice we don't use the enter key for that. We don't use the second key. We just enter the numbers, use whatever operator we need to use, and then eventually we will hit equals, and that will be the final total. Okay? Any questions? Oh, another dog. Shocking, I know, right? Excellent. Okay. So let's move on to our time value of money functions. Not coincidentally, if you remember, I talked about the unit 4 time value of money being the critical and most important concept that you're going to go through in this course. Dr. Frank does the Unit 4 cohort, and he does an outstanding job. So as a commercial, next week you can see him live, or you can see one of his recordings for his cohort in the COS under course tips. So time value of money, fundamental concept. The cool thing is that because we have these keys, which are the time value of money function keys, the handy dandy calculator really helps us significantly in terms of doing the calculations. If any of you decide to look at the formula sheet, which is on the COS as well, look at the time value of money calculations. You'll understand why investing $30 in a BA2 Plus is absolutely worth the money. So, for the time value of money function keys, you'll see the following keys, and you don't have to enter the data in any special order. I like to go from left to right only because that way I know exactly that I'm typing in or putting in things in the right order and I haven't forgotten something. But you can do it however you'd like. It's okay. So N, which is this first key here, is our number of periods key. And we'll go through a problem and you'll see what that means. I over Y is our interest rate per year. And the key here, as you'll see, is that 6% is entered as the number 6, not 0.06, only for the time value of money function keys. And you'll see that in a minute. PV stands for present value, which is one of the fundamental time value of money concepts. PMT, not surprising, stands for payment. And we use this especially to calculate payments or enter payments when we talk about annuities, which is a time value of money concept as well. And FV stands for future value, which is another fundamental time value of money concept. Okay, so again, may not mean a whole lot to you right now, but understand that this will make your life significantly easier when doing these calculations on the PA and OA. So here's an example of how we would use these keys. So we deposit $10,000 today in an account that pays 8% annual interest. Don't we wish, right? How much will we have in that account in 10 years? Okay, so we're going to use our calculator to calculate this. Our number of periods, the number of years, is 10. So to enter that, we would enter 10 and then hit the N key. No enter, just the function key itself. And it tells us N equals 10. Great. Our interest rate is 8%. And again, I'm not entering 0.08, I'm entering the number 8, and then interest per year, I over Y. It tells us I over Y equals 8. The calculator has enough intelligence to know that when you enter 8 for I over Y, it will transform it internally to 0.08. Makes it easier for us. Okay, our present value, which is the amount that we're going to put into our account today, we're going to enter as negative 10,000. The reason it's negative is because when we pay out money going out of our account, okay, we denote that as a negative because it is negative. Money's going out of our account. So how do we enter a negative number in the calculator? And this is important because if you do it in the wrong order, it won't work. So the order we do it to make that a number negative is we're going to enter first the number 10,000. So the number, the positive number comes first, right? 10,000. And then at the end, the plus minus key down here will add the negative sign for us. It's not the minus sign, not the subtraction sign, but the plus minus sign down here. You cannot do the plus minus sign first and then the 10,000, because if I do that and then I do 10,000, you can see it's a positive number. I have to do it afterwards. 10,000 negative, and then I hit the present value key. Okay, questions on that? Very important in entering negative numbers. Good. There is no payment, so our payment is 0. And lastly, we're trying to find our future value. What are we going to have in 10 years in the future? So here is where we use our compute key. Okay, so here's our compute key. So in order to compute our future value, we will hit the compute button and then the future value button. You notice I'm not holding it down, I just have to hit it once. And when I hit the future value button, we get a future value of $21,589.25. What this is saying is that if we deposited $10,000 in an account today that pays a fixed annual interest rate of 8%, in 10 years, that account will have $21,589.25. Questions on basic usage of the time value of money function keys? Okay, last but not least, and this is another very important concept. When you're done using the keys to do a calculation, you have to clear them. Otherwise, whatever numbers are in here will stay in here. So I get into the habit, I'm done with this calculation. To clear my time value of money, I'm going to hit my second key. And future value, right above it, it says clear TVM, clear time value of money. Now, everything in these function keys are 0. And as Dr. Frank said, this is huge. It is really important. I can't tell you how many students forget to do this and they get the wrong answers when they're calculating time value of money. Okay. Questions? We have one more quick concept and then we will be done in under an hour as I promised. Okay. The last thing you want to note to do is to calculate growth rates. There are 2 ways to do it. Okay, there is the formula way, and this formula is not on the formula sheet, so you would have to remember it's the ending value divided by the beginning value and then subtract 1. Or we can use our growth rate function on our calculator. And because I like to have machines do the work for me, I'm going to take you through number 2, which is using the growth rate function on your calculator. Okay. Here we go. So if we assume that sales this year are forecasted to be 120 and last year's sales were 100, what is the growth rate? And you will see, by the way, on the PA and the OA a question like this. So what do we do to use our growth rate function? We hit the second key and our number 5 key. And I know it's hard to see, but there's a little triangle and a percent. That means delta percent, which means a change in percent. Okay. You can see the number is still in here because I didn't clear it out from the last time I did this. Old means the original value, last year's value, which is 100. So I'll type in 100. Then I'll hit the Enter key. So here I use the Enter key. And it tells me old equals 100. I'll use my down arrow, which is here, to get to my next function. My new, which is my forecasted, which is 120. 120, Enter, down arrow. And the down arrow just moves it to the next choice that you have to make. That's all. Now it says percentage change, and of course that's not 47.0588. So in order to do the actual percentage change based on the information I just entered, I just have to hit the compute button. I don't have to do anything else, just hit compute. And that growth rate is 20%. So it's 20%, as you can see here. Okay. Questions on using the growth rate function. And again, what I should have done is I should have done second and then the clear button, and that will clear out all of my growth rate numbers that are in my growth rate function. Okay? Any questions about anything that we've talked about today? Okay, excellent. What I'm going to do is I am going to bring you back to here. And I am going to share with you, oops, sorry, let me bring this in here. You can download from, and I apologize for one of my doggies barking, you can download the PowerPoint for this presentation now, or it will be available on the COS under course tips tomorrow. So either way. Any last questions before I stop the recording? Okay, let me stop the recording.